Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment of our program brought to you by Madisonville Marine. Steve and Joe and the gang at Madisonville Marine, they not only sell boats and provide top customer service and guarantees, but they also make sure you're in the right boat for you. They work with you to make sure your boat best meets the needs of you and your family. It's not just about selling boats. People can sell you boats all the time. It's about putting you in the right boat. Nobody in East Tennessee has a bigger selection of boats, and nobody will sit there and work with you in terms of, okay, now we know you want to fish, but you've got a son and a daughter here. They want to have fun on the lake. So is it a pontoon? Is it a deck boat? Is it a fishing boat? They'll work with you to make sure you get the right boat for you, Madisonville Marine. All right. The right guy for us on the far end of the table today, Jimmy Hyams joins us. Jimmy, of course, the host of Sports Talk Monday through Friday on Sports Radio WNML. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we talked a bit about Dave Hart in the last segment, but let's talk Rick Barnes. And arguably, Tennessee just landed its biggest hire ever, resume-wise. Now, granted, he's 60, so he has a lot built up on the resume, but it's good stuff. Might be the best resume ever hired by the UT athletic department. Certainly the most, I don't want to say unanimous, but the most consensus positive hire since Johnny Majors came back in '77. You've always had a split fan base. So if nothing else, this, for the most part, has given you a hire without factions. Jimmy, you dealt with radio callers all week. Yeah. What has been the reaction?
Overwhelmingly positive. There have been some dissenters, and you're going to always have that because there was somebody down at Auburn that wasn't hired. But I think for the most part, it was you got a guy with a very good resume. Some people talked about he was on a little bit of a slide late in his career, and so I looked this up. He signed a 6-year contract with Tennessee, right? Yeah. So I looked at his last 6 years at Texas, and he went to 5 NCAA tournaments. He also was a coach of the year in his conference, and he averaged 22.7 wins a year. If you're a Tennessee fan, would you take that over the next 6 years? I think yes.
Absolutely, yeah. And the other thing is, he also had the top-ranked recruiting class in the Big 12 when he departed. So, yeah, I think you'd have to look at it and say this is a positive. And for again, that's such a plus for this program and this fan base for everyone, and I say everyone loosely, the majority, to get behind one guy. Because even you go back to Philip Fulmer, you know, the fan base split. Right, and it's like every hire since then has been kind of even Bruce Pearl. There were people that wanted Mike Anderson. You know, so that kind of stuff is a change for UT to have this much positives. Let's look at Barnes' resume here. He was at George Mason for 1 season, Providence for 6, Clemson for 4, Texas for 17 years. In all that time, look at that, 604 wins. He wins 70% of his games. Let's go to the next screen. There we go. UT's best ever hire. 22 NCAA bids in 28 years. Tennessee has 20 NCAA bids in their history. So one man has more bids than Tennessee in its history. Only 2 losing seasons in 28 years, 1 Final Four, 3 Elite Eights, 6 Sweet 16s. His age has come up as one of the big things of interest, one of the negative things that people throw out there. He'll be 61 this year. Are you concerned about age?
No. I mean, to me, 60 is the new 50. And I should know because I'm getting close to that myself. I mean, but you look out there, I mean, that's experience, that's recruiting contacts. You sign a 6-year contract. I mean, that's not that bad if you're looking at that age for all he's been able to accomplish.
Look at Steve Spurrier, who was hired at 59.
Final Four coaches, 168, 167. Now, they weren't in rebuilding mode, but still. And I think that with age, look, there's some people that are an old 60. There's some people that are a young 60, and I think Barnes is a young 60.
You know, my question to those people would be, if Nick Saban was fired or quit and was available as a football coach, would you say, no, we're not going to go Nick Saban. He's way too old at 62.
Or Tom Izzo.
I think that's silly.
Tom Izzo's 60.
Any of them.
Would you say, I don't want to hire him?
58 and up. I mean, all 4 of them. What, 57 and up, 58 and up? The whole 4 of the Final Four coaches.
Calipari's 56 or 7.
Yeah, I think it's 57, so that's all 4 of those guys. One thing that I look at is Steve Spurrier. You know, he went out of the NFL in a way he didn't like. Same way that Rick Barnes didn't like the way it ended at Texas. Steve Spurrier was motivated to show, I'm not ready for a rocking chair. You wonder if Rick Barnes isn't going to bring that same kind of attitude to Tennessee. He's also got a reputation among some as a great recruiter, but he's taken on some shots as not being great at X's and O's. All right, look, maybe that's the case. Mike, you covered those Tennessee-Texas games. He lost to Tennessee twice. He beat Tennessee once. I look at it and I see 600 wins. That tells me you got to know something about X's and O's. Only 2 losing seasons in 28 years. Yeah.
I think right now for Tennessee fans, that's getting a little picky to worry about that. I go look at if he can get you to the NCAA tournament 4 or 5 years in a row, then you can start picking at him for whether you didn't go far enough, you didn't go to the Elite Eight or whatever. But I think Tennessee fans, the state of the program right now, should take him and bite their tongue.
The two of the things, John, I heard the most of was that he's too defensive minded. Wasn't that part of what they wanted him, was to clean house, change some of his assistants? And the other thing was, it's kind of like the Philip Fulmer thing or some other coaches. You can stay somewhere too long.
Yes.
Yep.
It became time to move on.
Yep.
And who stays somewhere 17 years anymore in coaching? And there's not detractors.
You know, you mentioned Philip Fulmer, and that's another one of the things that's been thrown out. Are there different standards between Texas and Tennessee? Why is Tennessee taking out Texas kicked out? I don't think there are different standards. I think there's different timing. And a lot of that's due to Rick Barnes. Ask Philip Fulmer about standards at Tennessee. If you go a decade without a championship, have 2 losing seasons in 4 seasons, you can be a Hall of Fame coach, and that's it. I think the same thing did happen with Rick Barnes. It's, you know, at some point, it'll happen with Mark Richt eventually at Georgia as well. So when I look at it, I think that the standards thing, I'm not buying that argument that Tennessee is okay with taking a cast off. If Barnes rebuilds Tennessee and leaves, I think Tennessee will then be looking for the Shaka Smarts of the world. This time, they are not in the same place as Texas.
It's also a little bit mitigated by the fact that Texas wanted to keep him if he makes changes to his staff.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's not like Texas said, get out, gone, we're done with you. They gave him the opportunity to stay. So that's not the same thing as, we're disappointed in you and you're fired.
Right.
I agree with the fire in the belly. I do think he wants to come back and say, Texas made a mistake. I've still got more to give. They've got 2 great basketball prospects in this state for next year. We'll see if he can land one or both. And he is known as a very good recruiter. And what's Tennessee really need right now? They got to get players.
Yeah, you got to get a point guard, you got to get some bigs.
So I think it's a very good hire.
When we come back, Mark Pankratz joins us, and boy, this is a good segment. I can tell you right now, I'm going to be talking about what the coaching fraternity. What is Mark Pankratz hearing from other coaches about Rick Barnes? How they scouted him when he was on Bruce Pearl's staff. We'll talk playing style. We'll talk his recruiting acumen. Everything you wanted to know about Rick Barnes in a basketball deep dive coming up next on the Sports Source.
From East Tennessee to the Carolinas, no job is too big for Benedict Construction. Patios and decks, custom remodels, even custom homes. With a reputation for excellence, rely on the custom work of Benedict Construction.